Hi, and welcome back to Beyond the Monsters. Today we have Lorah Gerald. So happy to have you, especially after our talk. And you just went to some kind of big conference too, right?
Yes, I had a presentation I did here in Oklahoma where I
Okay.
was speaking to people that worked in child welfare, social workers, therapists, doctors, anybody, teachers, anybody that had anything to do with child welfare. Were working here to get better mental health care for people that have been
Okay.
affected by adoption and foster care.
Okay. Awesome. So go ahead and just fully introduce yourself,
Okay.
and what you do and all the things.
All right. As you said, my name is Lorah Gerald, and I am a baby scoop era domestic adoptee. I write as the Adopted Chameleon on social media. I've been working with adoptees, adopted parent, birth parents for about 5 years and talking about all of the things adoption related for about 5 years. Um, it happened after reunion because before that I was told that adoption didn't have anything to do with any of my mental health issues that I had. Like I suffered from depression, anxiety, things like that. Um, and anytime I would go, adoption was never brought up.
Right.
So,
And I really don't think that
yeah.
I mean, before I spoke with you briefly, I never thought of that, or that it could be an issue, or that it would be related, or anything like that.
Hence why I'm working with the social workers and the schools and things to help educate people, and hopefully someday it will be part of the curriculum and people will know that because
Right.
yeah. um,
Okay.
Myself and other adoptees started groups. I have one called the Adopted Chameleons. It's a private Facebook group. We
Okay.
started talking in private because intuitively we knew if we spoke in safe places, we
Mm.
could be vulnerable and find our authentic voice.
Right.
I mean, before I even had the therapy language, I was doing the things intuitively because we do intuitively know how to heal ourselves if we truly listen and don't resist going into painful things because pain is part of life, right? That's why we're resilient and why we have podcasts like Beyond the Monsters where we can talk
Right.
about it and move beyond it, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
that's what I did. I started talking about it and I had that private group, joined other groups, joined lots of other adoptees, talked about it. And I even started the Adoptees Connect Tulsa group here. And so I have meetups in person. I went to different conferences, Untangling Our Roots, Here with Hope and Healing. There's different retreats, Concerned United Birth Parents. I've actually presented at some. I do retreats and conferences also. And then
Wow.
some I've just attended, as a
Hmm.
person learning more.
Right. Right.
And that's what all of that's about, is for us to understand and to learn and do better, right? So,
Right. Because I, just my opinion, but I feel like it's kind of an unknown to most people. Like, I'd
right,
said I never even thought about that before.
right.
So it's so awesome that you're getting that out there and people can see that there are places to turn when
Yeah,
they're concerned with that. Yeah.
yeah. And
Love
that's
it.
one of the things I wanted to talk about is because it is kind of a hidden history and people are like
Hmm.
going, "Well, why would it be a hidden history?"
Right.
Because they don't understand that in the United States, the adoption industry is worth $25 billion. It is a
Wow.
lot of money.
Right.
And where money is involved, right? And it's unregulated too. People don't realize the adoption industry is unregulated. They really don't know exactly how many people are adopted and how they're being adopted.
Wow.
Yeah, there's rehoming groups on Facebook. Facebook actually allows this because, trust me, for years we've been trying to get this stopped.
Right.
Carpuzzi is one of the adoptees that talks about this a lot. If you want to go check her out, she talks about the rehoming issue with Facebook. They will not let you rehome a pet, but they will allow these private rehoming groups. And these people literally just put ads up, have, 10-year-old boy likes sports, looking for a new home. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, that goes on. Those are some monsters right there. And these were supposed to
Wow.
be forever homes. It's
Right.
horrifying the things that, well, how,
That's crazy that Facebook allows that
yes,
with
they
how
do.
strict they are on everything.
Yeah, look it up.
Gosh.
I'm amazed every time she shows another post saying, well, this one was another one. You have to see it to literally believe that it's allowed.
Right.
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 And it's rooted in secrecy. Like I said at the beginning, I'm a baby scoop era adoptee. People are going to go, I don't know what that is. A lot of people
Right.
won't. But what it is the baby scoop era was a time after World War II to about the mid 70s where there was a lot of babies born. And in these times, women didn't have the same rights, like couldn't get credit cards, couldn't buy a house. There
Mm-hmm.
were lots of control over women. And there was a lot of shame. There was a lot of false shame put upon women. So, if a woman got pregnant and she wasn't married, well, you can't keep that baby. You're sinful. These people over here that are married deserve that child. And they literally either coerced, took, stole. I mean, this was worldwide too. The United States hasn't even acknowledged this, but there were, let's see, there were about 4 million babies taken during that time. Families literally separated in closed adoptions. 2 million in the 60s, I'm one of those, on its own. And yeah, this is actually a crime against humanity that people do not talk about.
Was it mainly people with money or was it just all across the board? Like people with money were buying babies
Right.
or
This was more about the false shame of the unwed mother. This
okay.
was that, you're sinful because you had sex and now you're pregnant. So let's take and make your bastard child a legitimate child. It was more about that. And
Okay.
and guess who set up the adoption agencies? Religious organizations, right? So
Yeah.
shame, but we'll make a profit off of it.
Right.
So,
Right.
and that still goes on today. That still exists today. But people don't know about the baby scoop era, about how these families were literally torn apart. Australia was the first country to ever openly apologize for the crimes, and that was back in 2013. Yeah. The United States is trying to bring that back. We have people right now that are literally trying to bring back the baby scoop era. Forced
It
birthing.
sounds a little like trafficking to
It's
me.
it's very much trafficking
Yeah. Yeah.
because before the baby scoop era, there was Georgia Tann. And a lot of people don't know about her. There's books,
Mm-mm.
movies, you can easily find information about Georgia Tann, and she was a child trafficker. She ran the Tennessee, gotta say it's right, Tennessee Children's Home Society in Memphis from the 20s to the 50s. And she literally kidnapped children. She would coerce mothers, she would kidnap children literally, or tell mothers that their babies had died. Um, and that went on into the baby scoop era because she kind of overlapped it there at the end. She was going to be prosecuted as a child trafficker and she died. So she died
Mm.
right before prosecution. So the roots of adoption, and I haven't even gotten to the orphan train. We
Right.
can go back
Right.
to that. I mean, it
Right.
can go back a ways, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to slavery, actually, because they would sell the babies, right?
Right.
And they would also take them. So there are a lot, and there's eugenics. There's so much of a dark, shaded history in adoption that people don't know about, and that's why the adoption industry did this big marketing campaign, and they took, actually, this is really sad, a lot of the policies that Georgia Tann had in place, like a baby's a blank slate, baby's a gift to someone else, and selling, making a profit, because she was very profitable. She sold to people like Joan Crawford, Ric Flair. Remember the wrestler Ric Flair?
Yeah.
He was a Georgia Tann baby. So she catered to people that had money. And adoption agencies took that, and that's the policies, a lot of them they still use today. They really can't get away with the blank slate anymore, because a lot of us are out there talking about the truth of
Right.
it, and how, I mean, I was adopted as an infant, but I have pre-verbal trauma. My adoptive parents love me. They didn't know what they didn't know.
Sure.
So they were told, oh, blank slate, love it, that's it. End of story. No counseling for their trauma, no counseling for my trauma, nothing like that. And that's what happens in those closed adoptions, and in how it used to be. Nowadays, they will give you counseling, and they'll charge you for that too after they've, done the
Right.
adoption and coercion. And
Can you describe like what blank slate means? 'Cause I know many people, they might not know
okay.
exactly what it means.
Yeah, they would say that a baby was a blank slate, that they can't remember things, that they wouldn't know one mother to another mother. But I'm pretty sure if you ask a mother, they're going to say that their baby and them know each other.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, but that
Okay.
makes it palatable, and adoptive parents can reconcile in their mind that, oh, this baby's not going to miss their mother, they didn't,
Right.
just because
Because
they
they have
live there
me
and
now
bonded and
and
we're one
yeah.
body, they
Right.
don't know them. But that's
Right.
the time in our life when our brain is actually the most active. Because the baby, when they're born, I mean, that's a trauma number one. When we're born,
Hmm.
that's a trauma.
Right.
The trauma.
Hmm.
And the baby uses the mother as the parasympathetic nervous system to regulate. They need to co-regulate together. Now, sometimes adoptive parents nowadays are right there in the delivery room snatching the baby and taking them for themselves. I'm not trying to judge, shame anybody here. I know that they probably love that child, but the child doesn't know them. They're
Right.
strangers to the baby, so that dysregulates the nervous system. And this is just how our mammalian nervous system works.
And
Again,
that's
no
probably why
shame
we
here.
do skin to skin
Correct.
right away.
That's what I
Right.
was getting to is, yes,
Okay.
the baby and mother need to bond. My puppy, I just got a puppy, and my puppy was not allowed to leave the mother for 8 weeks.
Hmm.
Do we know why? Yes, behavioral issues. The mother and the puppy will have behavioral issues if they are separated too soon. But yet, a
And even that
human,
happens so often.
yeah,
5, 6 weeks, they're
yeah,
selling them off.
right. But human babies can literally be snatched right when they've entered the world.
Right.
And we don't even take into consideration what that's doing to the nervous system, which in turn does rewire the brain for survival. And then that's where we get into these horrifying statistics of what happens to adoptees. And this is another reason why I speak about it, because I've suffered a lot of these.
Hmm.
Adoptees are 36.7%. This is from the preliminary exploration into adoption reunions. That's my source, so you can look that up.
Okay.
36.7 times more likely to attempt suicide. We are, this one's from National Library of Medicine. Adoptees are 50.5% more likely to have substance abuse disorders. And adoptees are only 2 to 3% of the population in the United States, but they are 16.5% in residential treatment. So there's more statistics too. Birth mothers have these also. So
Wow. Those
it
numbers
does
are strong.
affect both. Yes. Well, and
Right.
most people, ask most mothers, how would they feel if they never got to see their child again?
Hmm.
And they were told that it was because they weren't worthy, but because these people were married, were. Just somehow magically
Right.
that made them better and know what your child needs more than you.
Right. You have my wheels spinning so much right now because, my mother was adopted. She had issues all her life. She did pass away when she was 67 during COVID. And my youngest daughter's boyfriend, she had a boyfriend that lived with us for 3 years, and he was adopted also by a very wealthy family in Manhattan. And he was with us for 3 years straight, sober, everything else. When he went back to Manhattan for the first time to visit, he died of a fentanyl overdose. People, places, things. But his whole life, the adoptive parents were sending him to like wilderness camps and this and that, and it's just got me thinking. Gosh, was that because of his adoption and things weren't handled right and he didn't have mental health care? It was just, oh, he's bad, he's being bad, and he does drugs and he's this. But we seems like, just like any addiction too, we have to go back to the root
Yes,
of
and
where it's starting.
exactly. Instead
Yeah.
of why are you behaving this way, what happened to you?
Right.
And
Right.
they throw out a lot of these kids get this RAD diagnosis. RAD is very, very rare, but they're
Okay.
being diagnosed with this so that the adoptive parents can go, see, there's something wrong with them. It's genetic, or, something is just not right.
Yeah.
Instead of going, the child was removed from their home, their heritage, everything they knew,
Right.
and they're inside of their own head feeling alone. And that may
Hmm.
not, because I'm, again, no judge or shame here. The adoptive parents may be trying really, really hard, but
Sure.
a child can't sit there and look at the people that adopted them and go, hey, I'm missing my other family. I'm having
Right.
some big feels here. And
Right.
I thought it might, upset you in a way.
Yeah.
They
And
can't, that
like they can't even process.
people as
Yeah, it's
adults can't do that.
right,
We
exactly.
expect children to
Exactly.
magically know how to sit the adult down and go,
Right.
listen, this has nothing to do with you. I
Right.
just miss my family because I'm a part of them. That's nature. It's
Right.
not a bad thing. And a
So
child will
it
mourn.
really wouldn't matter how much love they're given,
Right. It
from their
helps.
adoptive parents, and it
Right.
still goes back to the root of the issues.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Like I said, my adoptive parents love me very much, but I
Hmm.
was never told that my feelings were normal. I was told I had anger issues.
Okay.
I was told, all sorts of things. Oh, and of course, the drugs they like to give you, which
Right.
almost killed me, by the way, because I had an adverse reaction to them. So there's those things that happen too when you're being drugged for things that you need to actually feel and work
Right.
through,
Right.
and which is
And
what we
you probably
did.
had zero coping skills because no one was even addressing the
Well,
issues.
and it's generational trauma too.
Yes.
People are told, well, you can't have a baby, you just go adopt, just go adopt. Like it's just
Hmm.
that easy. And number one, there are about 40 hopeful adoptive parents for each baby born in the United States that's relinquished.
Oh,
That's why it's
wow.
supply and demand. That's why babies can be sold for 30, 70, even $100,000. And it depends on ethnicity and health.
Hmm.
Yes, it does. There's a list out there. You can look those up too. An adoption agency accidentally put some pricing on their website. So you can go look
What?
that up. Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
No shame in what they're
No
doing, huh?
shame, no shame. Also,
Wow.
there's a lot of scams out there, people. If you're hoping to adopt,
Hmm.
these things are not regulated. So they're going to charge you for this, that, and the other, and you may never get a baby.
Right.
So,
And some people spend their whole savings,
oh,
their
yeah,
life savings to do
their
it.
whole entire savings to not feel the pain of not being able to have their biological child, which makes them the worst candidates for adoptive parents. And I'm going to say that again. If you have not healed from your own trauma of not being able to have your own biological family, this is not for you, because
Okay.
this is not easy.
Hmm.
The child is not going to look like you, behave like you. They're going to be their own self.
Right.
And at some point, this is going to keep coming up. It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to go away until you heal what you need to heal. You can't
Right.
just buy a baby and then all of a sudden trauma done. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that way. You can
Right.
convince yourself while the baby can't talk. So for a while you're gonna be in
Right.
that zone where, see, look, everything's great. Yeah. Wait
Yeah.
till about 8, 10, 12, and
Mm-hmm.
later in life, because honestly, you're going to be with your adopted child as an adult, typically way longer than you're going to be with them as a child.
Right. Right.
So you need
I
to
guess
think
I
about.
can relate to that in another way. My first husband passed away when I was 25, and my youngest daughter was 6 months old, and he passed away. And she's 23 now. And I will tell you, she has his mannerisms, his expressions, everything, walks like him, like raises her eyebrow like he did, like, and she was never around him, but that's her biological father, and it's not like she learned any of that from him because she didn't. So there's that attachment. So I can see what you're saying with that. Totally.
Oh, yeah. I didn't get to meet my biological father until I was 55 years old. He didn't know I existed. And I
Really?
had 3 years with him. He died last year. So
Oh,
I
I'm
only had
sorry.
3 years. When I found him, he was in a nursing home. So he had had strokes. So there was some cognitive issues with us trying to communicate and stuff. But he accepted me and loved me for 3 years. And
Oh,
in those 3 years, like you were saying, I found where I had, like, he was in school to be an engineer when he was sent away to war.
okay.
And he built his own house. He could make his own clothes. He made lamps. He made his staircase. He made all these artsy things. And I was an interior designer. I could do the same thing. I could look at
Oh,
something and
that's
like
so
reverse a
cool.
pattern and make it.
Hmm.
This is a silly little thing, but I love Halloween. So I have a lot of those 12-foot skeletons. And
Yeah, yeah.
so I made an elf costume for my 12-foot skeleton because adoptee, right?
Right,
But
right.
but I made that, and he was alive during that time, and I showed him pictures of what I was doing and how I made it, and that's how I discovered that he could do that.
That's
Because when we
exactly
were,
where you got it from.
and then it was just one of those wow moments. All my life I never knew that. I'm in my 50s just
Yeah.
figuring out where I learned or knew things from, because I was never like my adopted parents ever. I mean, we were
Did you
very
wonder
opposite.
things like that growing up? Were
Oh
you
God,
like,
yeah.
I wonder where I get this from? I wonder just,
See, that's the secret fantasy, the ghost kingdom that the adoptees live in. Who are my parents? A lot of us think famous people. I wanted Bewitched to be my mom. I mean, why
right?
not, right? That would
Yeah,
be cool.
right,
So, yeah, there's fantasies that you have and stuff because you can't just go ask somebody.
right.
And
And
yeah, go ahead.
does it happen a lot too? I mean, I know a few like people that have been adopted, but it seems like a lot of times the adoptive parents don't want the child to meet their bio parents. Is that usually true or?
Yes, because they haven't healed their own trauma. See,
Yes.
that's exactly what
Yes.
that is they have not healed their own trauma, so they have ownership, which is
Hmm.
not love. That
And then
makes
probably fear.
that makes the
Right. Yeah.
adoptee beholden to them. And it doesn't allow the adoptee to be authentic to themselves because they owe the adoptive family.
Hmm.
So this is why the best, if you're going to adopt, consider adoption. By the way, there are far better options than adoption for children.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go off on this for a second
No, you're fine.
because adoptees don't even have the same rights as people that grew up in their natural families. There are 19 states that have restrictions. The adoptees can't get their vital records. There are 17 I'm sorry, 17 restricted. I get my numbers backwards. I made a note
That's
here.
fine.
I'm looking at my note.
No, you're fine.
17 that are completely restricted, 19 with some restrictions, and 15 that are open. In the United States right now in 2025, there are only 15 states where adoptees can go get their vital records.
So would those be open adoptions
No,
or
those are the states where they have opened the records for all
the
adoptees.
records?
Open
Okay.
adoptions, and there are some states that, like Utah, that's a state that a lot of adoption agencies like to use because they have a 24-hour period where the birth mother can change her mind. So, in the
Mm,
time after she's given birth, still coming down from the meds and the trauma of the birth, you know,
right.
even in the best of births, it's still traumatic to the body. I'm talking about a physical trauma here,
Hmm.
because I know the all the love
Blood.
and stuff comes in, and you don't remember it as much. But
Right.
still, while you're going through this, they make you sign, and then you only have 24 hours to come to your senses if you want. So Utah, they just pump them out there. That's where they when you hear about birth mothers getting money, it's
Hmm.
usually to take them to Utah. So it's not like these women are sitting around being given, you know, lavish lives and things. They're being used until they sign the papers and then they are discarded. So it is a very much a business of you give us our baby, we're going to be nice to you. The adoptive parents love bomb them. Oh, we're going to take them to Disney World. Look at this beautiful room, you know, things like that. Usually the mothers are single. Right now, the average mother is in her 20s. So a mother that relinquishes. And it's usually just financial. So they sell the baby 30,000 plus, but the statistics say that if a mother had 5,000 or less, she could keep her baby. So they use these coercive tactics. It's like, look what we can give you, look what we can give the baby, you know, and mothers want to do what's best, right?
Right.
So they feel shame and they're like, you know, I guess I'm not good enough. And that's how the adoption agencies usually get infants right now, because more and more mothers are learning about the groups, listening to adult adoptees online, and learning that it's not the amount of money. My,
Right.
I was one of those. My biological family had money. My adoptive family didn't.
Okay.
So I was one of those that everybody thinks you get someone that's rich. No, no.
Right.
People do
Right.
fundraisers to adopt babies. Churches give
Sure.
people
They
money
do.
to adopt babies. They get
Hmm.
money. They get
Tax credits.
yes,
Yep.
yes, tax credits,
Hmm.
insurance. They get all sorts of ways to, they can do car washes.
Right.
They do
Right.
everything to buy a baby.
Yeah.
And then the mother, if she were to ask for $500, oh, how do you think that's going to go? Yeah, you should have
Wow.
thought about that. Well, you know, you're not worthy. 500 bucks, you know, I just need diapers and a bassinet, you know, or something, and they won't do that. But they'll give people 50,000 to take someone else's baby. And this
Yeah.
happens all the time, every single day. I get in my feed these adoption agencies with these beautiful profiles, photos, videos of these families, and now they're branching out into surrogacy. And they target
I
who,
was just going to bring that up. Like, gosh, what kind of issues are there going to be when people use a surrogate?
yep, same
Because
thing.
that woman's still carrying their baby and
Yep, same
even the
thing.
emotions for that person. It's so sad.
Yeah, well, that's why in these groups, it's not just adoptees. I have surrogate, children that are born from surrogacy, donor conceived. There's
Okay.
a thing called an NPE, which is a non-parental event. With the popularity of the DNA kits, a lot of people are finding out that their parents weren't their parents, usually, obviously, dad. But
Right.
all of a sudden, you know, people are like, oh, well, you're the same person. It's like, well, no, I thought I was this and now I'm this, you
Yeah.
know, and I have a family out there that I don't know about. So I was listening to a very popular NP creator, and they were saying that it was something like 6% of the population will have that happen to them now because of the popularity of DNA, people just
Yeah.
taking it. As a matter of fact, we're coming into sibling season, they call it. Donor conceived people call it this, and NPEs call it this, because at Christmas, you get your DNA kit, you take it, you send it off, takes about 6 to 8 weeks to get it. February, there we go, siblings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Gosh.
whole thing in our community that we talk about because all of us have similar issues.
And people
So,
just don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and
exactly.
like, gosh, a lot of things you're saying are just shocking, and you feel bad for both sides, the adoptive parents, everyone involved, because they don't know.
Right. And
It's
that,
not like they're educating them and telling them these things,
right.
as adoptive parents, and
Right. And that's
sad.
exactly the point of
It's
this
very
is we
predatory.
don't know what we don't know. Now think about like I went back in history and we talked about the baby scoop era in Georgetown. We
Hmm.
didn't know what we didn't know. Orphan trains, we didn't know what we didn't know, right?
Right.
Nowadays, we're going to look back and people are going to go, we didn't know what we didn't know. Now, in adoption, the adult adoptees are trying to tell everyone. We're
Okay.
so that we do know because we
Right.
are the lived experience. And birth parents, also natural parents, first parents, they have different names. No disrespect to whichever one they use.
Right.
Um, but if we're sitting here telling people how important, the bond is for families, and adoption agencies are continually to trying to uh, create new ways to remain sustainable,
Hmm.
and we're catering to people that can't get children, we're going to look back at this time and say, they're going to try to say they didn't know what they didn't know, but we do know this. We
Right.
do know this. Physiology will tell you this. Spirituality will tell you this. You
Hmm.
know, usually common sense would tell someone this because if you've met a mother and their child, it kind of goes in the fathers,
Right.
grandparents, aunt, uncle, siblings, because adoption takes you away from your siblings and all of those people too.
Right.
I didn't meet my first sibling till I was 53.
Ugh.
And I looked him in the eyes and it was never like anything I'd ever, and when I got to hug him, it was like, I don't know, the creator themselves had hugged me.
The
Because
best hug you've ever had in your
right,
life.
I
Yeah.
could see
Yeah.
my face, I could see my eyes. I touched somebody that had my biology. Yeah,
Hmm.
we know that babies know their mother. There's been tests with breast milk. There's been tests with NICU babies. They don't do a lot of adoption studies. They're becoming more and more, and usually they're adoptees that are doing these research studies
Hmm.
because $25 billion a year,
Right.
right? The monsters.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I just try to wrap my head around all of it. And this is why I thought it was really important to have you on, because, like we said 10 times already, a lot of people don't know.
I don't know.
And I think they need educated on it. And we can also say it's obvious that there are some babies like that, they're
Right.
born with drugs in their system. Their
Of course.
life would have been absolutely terrible. They might not have even made it. And they do have wonderful adoptive parents.
Absolutely.
And but
Yes.
still, even in that case, if they're not being educated on those things, that therapy will be required.
Yes.
They could have addiction issues. Like,
Yes.
where's the education? And the
Yeah. Well, and that's the
I
comment
I don't get it.
that adoptees get when we're talking about the trauma of adoption, pre-verbal trauma, or if it happened later on when you were a little
Hmm.
older. Um, and the pushback is, well, you just want to throw them in the trash or just leave them in an orphanage. We don't have orphanages in the United States, so those are usually people in other countries. And we are
Right.
talking about different adoptions. There are adoptions from foster care, even though foster care is for reunification. If reunification can't happen, then if the parents give up their parental rights, then the child is up for adoption. So there are steps between foster care and adoption. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of adoptive parents use foster care as a cheaper way to adopt. That's not what it's for. So let's
Okay.
remember that foster care is for reunification. And in my state, 80% of children that are sent into foster care is because of financial issues, not abuse. So if the parents had been
Wow.
given the financial help to keep the children, the trauma wouldn't have happened.
Right.
And again,
See, I was a foster kid
yes,
too, but it was for abuse and all the things. And I do
right.
remember my mom had to actually pay like child support because she wouldn't, to the state. You know how
Yeah,
usually every
yes.
foster home I was in was absolutely freaking horrible. And they just wanted to collect checks and, all the things. But yeah,
And this perpetuates
that's
that
crazy that
generational
that's how it
trauma.
is now
Yeah. Well,
because
and
it wasn't like that
yeah,
before.
they know that foster care is a pipeline to prison too, which is also a profitable industry. The states make money off of foster care. I mean, I'm not even an expert on it. You're probably way more of an expert on it. I've just listened to so many, and I have so many in my group. Plus, we work together
Oh,
with
I'm
our
sure.
trauma and, how we uh,
Mm-hmm.
can make ourselves feel whole because we are whole. A lot of
Right.
adoptees are like, I'm broken and all this. You're not a
Mm-hmm.
broken human. You are not. I want you
Right.
to know you're not a broken human. You just are feeling that way. So we can put those feelings back
Mm-hmm.
into an authentic place. Can't even talk.
Right. Right.
And that's where I changed. All this trauma came up with reunion and all of these things, and I started understanding the history of adoption. And it wasn't me. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't me. I had
Right.
thought I was alone. And when I found all the other adoptees, I was like, oh, you mean this is normal? What we're experiencing is a normal part of having an abnormal experience?
Right.
Huh. So,
That is one of the beauties of,
yeah.
social media, the internet, all those things can be terrible, but
Oh,
that's such a positive these days
yes.
because I mean, I remember I always, with all the things I went through, it's 30 some years ago, I felt like I was all alone. And the only other people going through what I was going through were the people that I was in the homes with and things like that. But there's people everywhere with all
Everywhere.
this trauma and you just I hope it gives others hope,
Yes.
like for themselves, because
That's why
there
I'm
are
doing it.
people that yes, that can relate. It's the
Yeah.
whole reason we're doing this podcast too.
Exactly. And and
Mm-hmm.
and I even during my reunion, because there was a lack of support. Their therapists, were saying they were trauma informed, adoptee competent, and making it worse because they weren't. They were saying it's not adoption; it has nothing to do with it. Anyway, I ignored that and moved on
Right.
and stayed in
Right.
my groups, and it helped. I also became a Kundalini yoga instructor. I never wanted to be a yoga instructor. I didn't even know why I was signing up. I was giving money away I didn't even have, and I just felt compelled to do it. I had done it, and I knew I felt good when I did it. Well, halfway through it, I was going, "Oh my God, these teachings of yoga from thousands of years ago are
Mm-hmm.
scientifically being proven now." So everything started coming together. So I became a yoga instructor after that. And then I became a trauma informed yoga instructor. I took training and I'm in polyvagal theory yoga training right now. I've got 2 more weeks and then I'll have some more credits underneath me. I've studied with Dr.
It's
Stephen
awesome.
Porges, who wrote polyvagal theory. So I can, I, that's why it's like this isn't about shame and blame. These are
Mm-hmm.
things that our body naturally does.
Right.
And if we
Is
can
that where we're
understand,
holding trauma in our body and you talk about releasing it
yes,
and okay.
yes, and yoga is one of those tools. It's one tool. There's lots of tools: dancing, tai
Mm-hmm.
chi, boxing,
Right.
jogging. There's
Right.
some somatic experience. Even art is like a mindfulness. Singing, singing works the vagus nerve. It's beautiful. Chanting, humming, gargle. If you're just in a moment of crisis or something, notice if you start humming and stuff. That's one of our
Mm-hmm.
innate things that we do. I did that all my life. I would hum, and I was like just now figuring out, oh my God, I was calming myself down because
Right.
the vagus nerve connects right through your neck. It goes
Mm-hmm.
all the way from your top through your neck, all the way through your chest and your intestines. So when people are like in trauma and adoptees, they have a lot of stomach issues. People that have a lot of childhood trauma usually have a lot of stomach issues and skin issues because
Yeah.
it manifests in physical things as well as mental.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, high blood pressure, like I said, lots of stomach issues. These are
Mm-hmm.
all from trauma that's not being resolved because, well, we like to resist things that make us uncomfortable.
Right. For
Right? We
sure.
don't want to
For
be
sure.
uncomfortable. That's
For
normal.
sure.
That's natural. Again, no shame, no blame. That's
Right.
natural. We don't want to be uncomfortable. But when we go ahead and lean into uncomfortable situations and allow ourselves to cry, feel what we need, we can actually move through it. And then we see that that's just a part of us.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
but it
Now,
takes
do you do some
practice.
of, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Do you do any kind of the yoga, events that you do? Could you do it online too, so
Yes.
people from all over?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I actually teach on Zoom every Wednesday
Oh,
and
good.
Sunday at 11 a.m. Central Time. I have a Patreon page. I'm getting ready to start a
Okay.
YouTube page or
Okay.
expand my YouTube page, I should say. And
Awesome.
yes, I do, like I said, I do retreats, conferences. I teach in person. I actually go teach at schools and stuff like the social workers school.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm teaching the teachers because that's one thing that's really important. Helpers need to have helpers too. If you're
Yes.
working, this is something for the adopted parents. These are tools, things for adopted parents also, because if you are helping someone that has trauma, you're going to need those tools.
I'm so glad that you said that you're teaching like social workers and people in that space because I can tell you, I've met, and I did, forensic psych and addiction for almost 20 years. I've met some horrible social workers. And I think that they were horrible. Either they just shouldn't be in that space and they just didn't care enough, or they were just uneducated in so many different things.
Yeah, there's a
They did
lot of
their,
turnover.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
because they
tough
don't have
job.
their
It's a
tool.
tough job.
Right, it's a tough job, and that's why I'm reaching out to those people specifically so that they can take care of themselves, so that they can
Right.
take care of others. Because self-care, self-love, self-healing is benefiting others.
Yes.
Put your oxygen mask on first, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely.
It's very important. And right now it's so, so important because the world is chaotic and it drains our energy, and that's what they want. They want to drain us.
Yeah.
So we got to put our energy, take care of it, protect it, and spend time every day. Every day, whatever, if yoga's not your thing or whatever, try something. Go for a 30-minute walk with your dogs or a friend or
Mm-hmm.
a neighbor, whatever.
Do
Just
you give them other tools like for different
absolutely.
things like that too?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have workshops. I can teach people to do things while they're sitting at their desk. My classes on Wednesday and Sunday are full routines, but I also do private classes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
anybody that's just needing something specifically for them for a specific reason, I can do that. Yeah,
Okay.
I can adjust it to however you want. You're like, I'm not really a yoga person, but I need, the movement. So I can teach you breath work, some chanting, things like that, that maybe isn't as taxing physically.
Okay. And so what would they do with you? Would they do like an intake kind of form and
Yeah,
stuff
we
to fill
can,
out and then
right.
history and
Yeah,
okay.
and
I
usually
love
I
what you're
meet on
doing.
Zoom or something and we just kind of talk about it because I like to see the person and just, we're real, we're
Right.
real here.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not just a
Yeah.
website, I'm a real
Right.
human being.
Right. And that's important because there's a lot of fake stuff out there
Yes,
and people just trying to make money off people and
absolutely.
it's not real whatsoever. So
Yeah,
definitely
and
recommend for everyone to do that. Just,
yes.
well, even like how we did our little Zoom call at the beginning, I'm like, I just want to make sure you're a person.
Well, you're
Yeah.
real, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
It
important.
is important, and it's also important to know who you're trusting for your mental health care needs.
Yes.
Whether you're going to a coach, a consultant, a yoga instructor, whoever's in that toolbox for you, make
Hmm.
sure that they have done their own work.
Yes.
Because if
Because,
they know how to do their own work, then they can
yes.
help you. because
Yeah,
there are
like really
people,
look at their
yeah,
credentials, all those
yeah,
things, because everybody today wants to be a coach.
right. And a lot
But
of them,
what is that exactly? You want to
right.
look for those trainings and the different things, who they've worked under,
Yeah.
all of it,
Who,
because
what books have they read? What
right,
podcasts do they listen to?
right,
Do they belong
yes,
to groups? Because it
yes,
is important. Anybody can read a book and say, well, I'm a coach now.
right.
And they do.
Exactly.
And they
Right.
do.
I
And
know. And that's what is scary, because if you're going to trust someone with your life, pretty much, and someone's guiding you mentally, physically, whatever it might be, they need to know their shit.
yes. And it is important. Like me, anybody listening, I'm going to give you a free class. All you've got to do is go to my website, pick out the Wednesday or Sunday class on Zoom.
Okay.
It's at 11 a.m. again, Central Time, and type in free class, one word, just lowercase free class, and you can come try it. I'll
Okay.
send
And
you
I'll
a
make
link.
sure we put that in the
Yeah.
description,
Yeah.
with the code and everything, because I hope people do hear this and, they've been lost and they're looking for someone to turn to. I'd love for them to contact you, because I think it could be life changing.
Yeah, and I just want them to try it. It
Right.
might be something that they love, and maybe they go on and find different teachers. Maybe they keep
Right.
coming to my class. I'm not trying to say that I'm the only one because I'm not.
Right.
There's
Right.
lots of tools. I'm one tool, and I hope that you try it, but there are
Mm-hmm.
lots of tools, and I always suggest other things to people in my class too. Hey, have you done this? Have you done this?
Right.
Yeah.
And they never know who they're going to come across, with you.
Yeah.
Different groups that they become part of. They
Yeah.
have a whole community.
Yeah, we do have a community because
Yeah.
after the classes, we all kind of do a little check-in. Some days we talk for a long time,
Mm,
some days it's a short little check-in, but we
yeah.
always have a check-in afterwards. If you don't want to participate, that's fine. You can, well,
Hmm.
that's the nice thing about Zoom. You just end the meeting
Right.
and you're on in your own house. Hey,
Right.
how nice
Right.
is that? You've set your
Absolutely.
own space, you're safe, you're secure where you want to do it. And that's what's important about my yoga. It's not about doing the poses like I do. It's about
Hmm.
how you feel. Kundalini yoga is the yoga of awareness. And
Okay.
if I'm in a pose and I give you variations too on these poses, by the way. If
Okay.
I'm doing a pose and you're like, this is not for me today, perfect. You got it.
Right.
You became
Right.
aware of what you needed. So
Right.
yoga is important because you're aware of what you don't need and what you do need.
Right. Love it. I absolutely love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Changing lives, girl. You're changing
You are
lives.
too. Thank you.
We hope. We hope. I hope that somebody
Planting
resonates with
seeds.
this. And yes, yes, I love it. All right. Well, I am going to make sure that kind of puts everything in the description, all your links, all the things, so people can reach out to you.
And if they, I also have an adoptee resource link on my website, lorahgerald.com. So if
Okay.
people are needing resources or just wanting to learn more and maybe they're, you know, they don't want to interact yet, go look at
Right.
those resources. Just and if you're an adopted parent, birth
Yeah.
parent, adoptee, any
Mm-hmm.
NPE, foster care youth, whatever, go look at the
Right.
resources that are
Right.
out there. And then from there, you'll find lots of other groups.
I love it. I love it. It was an honor having you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.